At 6:42 p.m. on a Saturday evening in October, I stood in the back room of my parents' church hall holding a paper plate with one slice of sheet cake on it, listening to my mother tell 63 people that my sister was getting the house. Not someday. Not maybe. That night. My mother stood beside a balloon arch that said Happy 40th Anniversary, Linda and Warren, wearing the pearl necklace I had bought her for Mother's Day 3 years earlier. My father had one arm around my younger sister Jessica, who was crying just enough to look grateful but not enough to ruin her makeup. And I stood near the folding chairs, invisible, with frosting melting into the ridges of a paper plate. My mother tapped a spoon against her glass. "Everyone," she said, smiling so wide her cheeks barely moved. "Before we cut the cake, Warren and I have a special announcement." I looked up because I thought maybe they were finally going to thank me. For 12 years, I had paid $2,184 every month toward their mortgage. 12 years. 144 payments. More than $300,000 after interest, late fees, repairs, insurance, and the emergency money they always needed right before my rent was due. I had paid when I was 24 and eating instant noodles in my apartment. I had paid when I was 28 and postponing dental work because my mother said the bank was threatening foreclosure. I had paid when I was 32 and my father told me his blood pressure couldn't handle another notice in the mail. I had paid because they told me family saved family. So when my mother said they had an announcement, I straightened up. Then she put her hand on Jessica's shoulder and said, "We've decided it's time this house stayed with the child who will actually carry on our family." For a second I thought I misheard her. The room clapped. My sister covered her mouth. My father looked at the floor. And my mother kept talking. "Jessica and Mark have struggled so much," she said. "With the twins, with Mark changing jobs, with the cost of everything. So your father and I have decided that when we downsize next spring, Jessica will get the house." A buzzing sound filled my ears. Not from the microphone. From inside my own head. My cousin Rachel turned around and looked at me. Her smile disappeared first. Then my aunts. Then two people at the dessert table slowly stopped clapping. Jessica leaned into my mother like a princess being crowned. And my mother looked straight at me. Not with shame. With warning. As if daring me to ruin her perfect family moment. I set the cake down on the nearest table. My fingers were shaking so badly the plastic fork slid onto the floor. I wanted to scream. I paid for that house. But I didn't. Because 3 days earlier, I had found something in a county records office that changed everything. A deed. A certified copy with a blue stamp. And on the owner line, printed in black ink, was my name. Not my mother's. Not my father's. Not Jessica's. Mine. That was the moment I understood something that made my knees almost give out. My parents hadn't just used me. They had made me pay for a house they had been hiding from me. And by the time my mother raised her glass and said, "To Jessica's future," I already knew exactly how their perfect announcement was going to end. But they didn't. Not yet. 2. Before everything broke. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 36 years old when I found out the house I had been saving was already mine. For most of my adult life, I didn't think of myself as the angry daughter. I was the responsible one. The one who answered calls. The one who sent money. The one who apologized first even when I had been the one hurt. I worked as a billing coordinator for a regional medical supply company outside Columbus, Ohio. It was not glamorous work, but it was steady. I knew insurance codes, invoice disputes, shipping delays, and how to keep my voice calm when people on the other end of the phone were scared, angry, or both. Maybe that was why my family trained me so easily. I already knew how to absorb panic that did not belong to me. I lived in a one-bedroom apartment above a dentist's office. The pipes knocked in winter. The kitchen window faced a brick wall. My downstairs neighbor played gospel music every Sunday morning at a volume that made the floor hum. But it was mine. Or at least it was the closest thing I believed I deserved. I had dreams once. I wanted to buy a small condo. I wanted to go back to school for healthcare administration. I wanted to take one of those trips where people sit at airport gates with coffee and backpacks, not because someone was sick or dying, but because they were going somewhere beautiful. Every time I almost got close, my parents had an emergency. The water heater burst. The property taxes went up. Dad's truck needed repairs. Mom's medication wasn't covered. The mortgage was behind. Always the mortgage. That word became a hook in my mouth. When my phone lit up with Mom, my stomach tightened before I even answered. "Claire, sweetheart," she would say. And I would know it was bad because she only called me sweetheart when she needed money. "I hate to ask, but we're short again." "How short?" A pause. Then the number. Sometimes $600. Sometimes $1,400. Once $5,900. And somehow, no matter how many times I asked for details, the answer was always foggy. "You know how your father is with paperwork. The bank changed something. It's complicated. We just need this 1 month." But 1 month became 12 years. I was not married. I had no children. My mother used both facts as evidence that I had no real expenses. "You're lucky," she would say. "You only have yourself." She said it like being alone was a financial advantage, not an ache. Jessica, my younger sister, was different. Jessica had a husband, 2 children, a house full of white furniture, and a way of needing help that made everyone feel honored to give it. When Jessica needed money, my mother called it support. When I needed understanding, she called it drama. Still, I kept trying. That is the humiliating truth. I was not forced at gunpoint. Nobody dragged me to the bank. I sent the money because a part of me still believed that if I gave enough, stayed quiet enough, proved myself enough, my parents might finally look at me the way they looked at Jessica. Like I was worth protecting. I did not know then that some families do not measure love by what they give you. They measure it by how much they can take before you finally notice. 3. The family favorite. If you walked into my parents' house before everything fell apart, you would have known within 30 seconds who mattered. Jessica's wedding portrait hung above the fireplace. Jessica's twins had framed handprints in the hallway. Jessica's college graduation photo was on the piano, even though she finished 2 semesters late after changing majors 3 times. My graduation photo was in a drawer under old batteries and takeout menus. I found it once by accident while looking for scissors. I was 27. The photo was still in the cardboard sleeve from the photography studio. My smile looked nervous. My cap was tilted. Behind me, my parents were not standing proudly with arms around me, because they had left early to help Jessica pick up a sofa she bought on Facebook Marketplace. When I held the photo in my hands, my mother walked in and said, "Oh, I wondered where that went." That was all. Not "I'm sorry." Not "we should frame that." Just, "I wondered where that went." Jessica never had to wonder where anything went. Her things were displayed, protected, praised. She was 3 years younger than me and had always been described as sensitive. That word protected her like glass. If Jessica forgot my birthday, she was overwhelmed. If I forgot to call Mom back within an hour, I was selfish. If Jessica cried, everyone moved closer. If I cried, my mother lowered her voice and said, "Don't start." My father was not loud like my mother. He was worse in a quieter way. He let things happen. He sat behind newspapers and steering wheels and TV remotes, while my mother shaped the family around Jessica's needs. When I challenged anything, he would sigh like I had asked him to lift a car. "Just help your mother," he would say. Or, "You know how Jessica is." Or the sentence I heard more than any other, "Don't make this harder." That was my assigned role. Not daughter. Not sister. Not person. I was the one who made things easier. At Sunday dinners, my mother served Jessica first because the kids get impatient. Then Mark, Jessica's husband, because he works such long hours. Then Dad. Then herself. I got whatever was left. If there was one piece of chicken left and I reached for it, my mother would say, "Claire, you don't need that, do you?" Jessica barely ate. And I would put it back. Small things teach you where you stand. A chair pulled away. A story interrupted. A favor expected. A joke made at your expense while everyone waits to see if you will be difficult enough to react. One Thanksgiving when I was 31, I arrived with a homemade apple pie. I had worked late the night before and stayed up until almost 1 a.m. peeling apples because my father once said my grandmother Evelyn made the best apple pie in the county, and I wanted to bring something that mattered. Jessica arrived 20 minutes late with store-bought rolls still in the plastic bag. My mother took the rolls and said, "Oh, thank God. Something useful." Then she looked at my pie. "Claire, you know your father's watching his sugar." My father ate 2 slices of Jessica's pumpkin cheesecake that night. I remember sitting in the bathroom afterward, staring at the tiny seashell soaps my mother kept in a basket no one was allowed to use. I pressed my thumb into my palm so hard it left a crescent mark. I whispered, "Why do I keep coming back?" Then my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Can you help clean up? Jessica's exhausted." And I did. Because I still thought endurance was love. Because no one had taught me that being useful is not the same as being valued. 4. The betrayal. The mortgage started with a phone call on March 18th, 12 years before the anniversary dinner. I remember the date because it was the day after my 24th birthday. Not that anyone in my family remembered my birthday that year. I had just gotten home from work. I was still wearing my navy blouse with coffee on one cuff when my mother called. She was crying. My mother did not cry often. She usually weaponized silence or disappointment. So when I heard her breath break on the phone, I sat down on the edge of my bed. "Mom? What happened?" "It's the house," she said. "Claire, we're going to lose the house." The words hit me hard. That house was the only place in my family that still held pieces of my grandmother Evelyn. She had lived there before my parents moved in to help take care of her. The wallpaper in the dining room was hers. The lilac bush by the back fence was hers. The tiny pencil marks on the pantry door, where she measured Jessica and me as kids, were hers. "What do you mean lose it?" "The mortgage is behind," Mom said. "Your father didn't want to worry you girls." "You girls." As if Jessica was also being called. I found out later she was not. "How much?" My mother sobbed harder. "Claire, please don't make me say it." That sentence did exactly what she wanted. It made me feel cruel for asking. When my father got on the phone, his voice was low and tired. "I messed up," he said. "I thought I could catch up. I couldn't." "How far behind are you?" 3 months. I closed my eyes. "How much?" 6,000, maybe a little more with fees. At 24, $6,000 felt like a mountain. I had $8,700 in savings, built slowly from overtime and skipping anything that looked like fun. "I can help with some," I said carefully. "But I can't cover everything." My mother came back on the line. "If the bank takes this house, it will kill your father." That was the sentence. Not "we made mistakes." Not "we need a plan." Just "it will kill your father." So I paid. First $6,200. Then $1,800 the next month. Then $2,184 the month after that. Because my mother said that was the new amount after restructuring. I asked to see the paperwork. She said, "Do you not trust us?" I said, "I just want to understand." She said, "Your grandmother would be ashamed of you for making this about money." That shut me up. Using Grandma Evelyn against me was like pressing a bruise. She had been the only adult in my childhood who made me feel chosen. She taught me how to sew buttons, how to make pie crust, how to check oil in a car. She slipped me $5 bills before school field trips because she knew my mother always forgot. When Grandma died, I was 19. My parents said she left no real money, just debts and the house burden. I believed them. So when they said the house was in danger, I didn't just feel fear. I felt duty. For 12 years I paid. I paid the mortgage directly sometimes, using account numbers my mother texted me. Other times she insisted I send money to her because the portal was down or the bank was being difficult. I paid property taxes twice. I replaced the furnace. I paid for roof repairs after a storm. When I asked if Jessica could contribute, my mother snapped, "Your sister has children. I have bills. You have freedom." That was another one of her cruel sentences. You have freedom. As if loneliness was a luxury item. As if my empty apartment was proof I owed everyone else my life. 5. The moment I stopped begging. The year everything changed began with a family group chat message. My mother created the chat for my parents' anniversary dinner. She named it Bennett Family Blessings, which would have been funny if it hadn't made me want to throw my phone across the room. The first message was a list of assignments. Jessica was handling decorations. Mark was choosing music. Aunt Diane was bringing flowers. Cousin Rachel was making a slideshow. I was assigned payments. Not asked. Assigned. Mom wrote, "Claire, since you're good with bills, please send $1,500 for the hall deposit and catering by Friday." I stared at the message during my lunch break, sitting in my car because the break room was too loud. For once I typed back. I can contribute $300, but I can't pay $1,500. I'm still covering the mortgage this month. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then Jessica replied. Here we go. My face got hot. Then Mom, this is for your parents' 40th anniversary. Please don't embarrass us. I typed. I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. I just can't keep paying for everything. Jessica replied almost instantly. You don't pay for everything, Claire. You always make it sound like you're the victim. I read that sentence 5 times. You don't pay for everything. My thumb hovered over the screen. I wanted to send screenshots, bank transfers, mortgage confirmations, the furnace invoice, the property tax receipt from 2021. All the receipts I had saved in a folder called Mom and Dad House because some tired, suspicious part of me had started keeping records years before I was ready to admit why. Instead I wrote, I've sent money every month for 12 years. No one replied for 7 minutes. Then my mother called. I let it ring. She called again. I let it ring again. Then a voicemail appeared. Her voice was cold. Claire, you need to stop this. Your sister is crying. You always do this when the attention isn't on you. Something in me cracked then. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a thin internal break like ice under a foot. Your sister is crying. I was sitting alone in a parking lot with a half-eaten turkey sandwich in my lap, trying to figure out whether I could pay rent and the mortgage and still afford new tires before winter. But Jessica was crying. That evening my father called. Apologize to your mother, he said. For what? For making the family uncomfortable. I laughed once. Came out sharp and strange. Dad, do you know how much I've paid toward that house? Silence. Dad. He sighed. Money isn't everything. That was the first moment I heard it. Not guilt. Not gratitude. Fear. A tiny tremor under his words. I sat up straighter. What does that mean? It means don't turn this anniversary into one of your episodes. My episodes? You get emotional. I looked around my apartment. At the thrift store lamp. The stack of unopened bills. The framed picture of Grandma Evelyn on my bookshelf because she was the only family member whose face didn't make me feel judged. I'm asking a basic question, I said. How much is left on the mortgage? He didn't answer. That silence became the first loose thread. The second came 2 days later when Aunt Diane called me. Aunt Diane was my father's sister. She was blunt, nosy, and usually loyal to whoever hosted Thanksgiving. We were not close. But that day her voice sounded different. Claire, she said. Are you really refusing to help with the party? I rubbed my forehead. I said I couldn't pay $1,500. Well, your mother said you stopped helping with the house years ago. I froze. What? She said they've been carrying everything themselves and you act like sending grocery money once in a while makes you a saint. The room tilted. I actually reached for the kitchen counter. She said that. Aunt Diane went quiet. Claire, how much have you been sending? I didn't answer right away, because saying it out loud felt like standing naked in the street. Finally I said, over $2,000 a month. 4 years. Aunt Diane inhaled. Then she said something I did not understand at the time. That doesn't make sense. What doesn't? Another pause. Nothing. I need to look for something. What something? But she was already ending the call. That night, I opened my laptop and searched county property records. I had never done it before. I typed in my parents' address. The website was ugly, old, and confusing. I clicked through parcel numbers, tax history, transfer dates, scanned documents that loaded sideways. Then I saw a name. Not mine. My grandmother's. Evelyn Margaret Bennett Trust. My mouth went dry. I clicked another document. Access denied. In-person request required. I slept maybe 2 hours that night. The next morning, I called in sick for the first time in 3 years and drove to the county recorder's office with my hands locked around the steering wheel. I still didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew finally that my parents had been afraid of me finding it. The county recorder's office smelled like paper, dust, and burnt coffee. A woman behind the glass window asked for the address. Her name tag said Marisol. She had silver glasses on a chain, and the calm expression of someone who had watched families fall apart over property lines for 20 years. I gave her the address. She typed, clicked, frowned slightly. Are you requesting the full deed history? I think so, I said. I'm not sure. She looked at me over her glasses. That usually means yes. I paid $18.50 for certified copies. Then I sat at a wooden table under fluorescent lights while Marisol placed a folder in front of me. The first document was old. My grandmother's name. Then a transfer into a trust. Then, dated 11 months before she died, another document. Transfer on death designation affidavit. I read the first page. Then the second. Then the third. My vision blurred. Beneficiary: Claire Evelyn Bennett. My full legal name. The house transferred to me upon my grandmother's death. Subject to a recorded life occupancy agreement, allowing Warren and Linda Bennett to reside in the property until either voluntary relocation or violation of maintenance and tax obligations. I didn't understand all of it, but I understood enough. My grandmother had left me the house. My parents had the right to live there. They did not have the right to sell it. They did not have the right to give it to Jessica. And they had never told me. There was also a letter. Not in the county file. Marisol found a note attached to the recording reference saying supporting estate correspondence had been filed with the probate packet. That sent me to another building, another window, another fee. By 2:30 p.m., I was sitting in my car with a copy of a letter from my grandmother's attorney. It was addressed to me. I had never seen it. My hand shook as I read. Dear Claire, your grandmother wanted you to have the house because, in her words, Claire will protect the home, not use it as a prize. She also requested that your parents be allowed to live there, as long as they maintained the property in good faith. She hoped this arrangement would give you security one day, and give them dignity in the meantime. Security. One day. I pressed the paper to my chest and started crying so hard I couldn't breathe. Not because of the house. Because Grandma had chosen me, and they had hidden it. For 12 years my parents had let me believe I was saving their home. For 12 years they had taken money from me for a mortgage that, according to the records, had been paid off 9 years earlier. Paid off. I found that out from an attorney named Daniel Price, whose office was 2 blocks from the courthouse. Aunt Diane gave me his number after I called her from the parking lot. I wondered, she said quietly. Mom always said Evelyn had plans for you. Your father told us it was handled. Handled. That word made my stomach turn. Daniel Price was in his late 50s, with tired eyes and a voice that made every sentence sound carefully measured. I spread my folder across his conference table. Bank transfers, mortgage confirmations, text messages, repair invoices, property tax payments. He reviewed the deed first, then the occupancy agreement, then the payment records. At one point, he removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Claire, he said, based on what I'm seeing, you are the legal owner of the property. I stared at him. And the mortgage? The original mortgage appears to have been satisfied in 2015. That's impossible. I've been paying it every month. He looked at the printouts again. You've been sending money. That does not mean you've been paying an active mortgage. The room went silent. There are silences that are empty. And there are silences that are full of every lie you finally understand. I whispered. Where did the money go? Daniel didn't answer immediately. That, he said, is a question we can ask formally. What do I do? He tapped the deed with one finger. First, you stop arguing with them. Second, you stop sending money. Third, you let them make their next move. I almost laughed. They're announcing at their anniversary dinner that they're giving the house to Jessica. His eyebrows rose. In public. Yes. Good, he said. I looked at him, stunned. Good. He slid the certified deed into a clean folder. People who lie comfortably in private often get careless in public. For the first time in 12 years I did not feel small. I felt still. Like a match before it strikes. 7. The reveal. The anniversary dinner was held in the Fellowship Hall of Grace Covenant Church, where my parents had renewed friendships, borrowed casseroles, and built an image so polished nobody ever saw the rot underneath. Round tables filled the room. White tablecloths. Gold plastic chargers. Framed photos of my parents through the years. A slideshow played against the far wall. Mom and Dad at the beach, Mom and Dad at Christmas, Mom and Dad holding Jessica's twins. I appeared in exactly 2 photos. One was from the side of my head. The other showed me carrying a tray in the background. I arrived wearing a navy dress and the small silver necklace Grandma Evelyn had given me when I turned 16. My mother looked disappointed the moment she saw me. "You're late," she said. "I'm 8 minutes early. The caterers needed help." Of course. Jessica swept in behind her wearing a cream jumpsuit and gold earrings so large they brushed her neck. "You came," she said. Not warmly. More like she had spotted a stain that had not washed out. "I was invited." She smiled. "Mom was worried you'd make things awkward." I'm sure she was. Jessica's eyes narrowed. Behind her, my father watched us from beside the punch table. He looked older than usual. Smaller somehow. But when our eyes met, he looked away. That hurt more than I expected. Even then, even after everything, a part of me still wanted him to cross the room and say, "Claire, I'm sorry. Your mother went too far. We were wrong." Instead, he adjusted the stack of napkins. Daniel Price arrived at 6:15 p.m. He did not come in like a television lawyer. No dramatic suit. No shiny briefcase. Just a gray jacket, calm face, and a folder tucked under one arm. Aunt Diane let him in through the side door. Cousin Rachel came to stand beside me. "Is that him?" she whispered. "Yes. Are you sure you want to do this here?" I looked at my mother laughing near the cake, touching Jessica's arm like she was the only daughter in the room. "No," I said. "But they are." The dinner began. There were speeches. Pastor Glenn talked about commitment. Mark joked that my parents had shown everyone what true partnership looked like. Jessica cried while saying she hoped her marriage would be half as generous as theirs. I almost choked on my water. Then my mother stood. She had always loved a room. Some people shrink when others look at them. My mother expanded. Her voice grew softer. Her hands moved gracefully. Her face arranged itself into humble gratitude. 40 years, she began. Warren and I have built a life around faith, family, and sacrifice. Aunt Diane made a sound under her breath. My mother continued. And as we get older, we've been thinking about legacy, about what we leave behind. Not just possessions, but values. Jessica reached for Mark's hand. My pulse slowed. That surprised me. I expected panic, rage, tears. Instead, everything became sharp. The clink of a fork, the smell of buttercream frosting, the tiny flicker in my father's jaw. My mother placed one hand over her heart. And that is why Warren and I have decided that next spring, when we move into something smaller, our family home will go to Jessica and Mark. Applause broke out. Jessica covered her face. Mark grinned. My father stared at the floor. My mother added, "They need room for the children, and we know they'll fill that house with love." I stood. Not fast. Not dramatically. Just stood. The applause faded unevenly, like a radio losing signal. My mother saw me and her smile hardened. "Claire," she said lightly, "we'll talk later." "No," I said. "We'll talk now." The room went still. Jessica dropped her hands from her face. "Don't do this," she hissed. I looked at her. "Do what?" "Make it about you." There it was. The family motto. I walked toward the front of the room. My legs felt numb, but my voice did not shake. "For 12 years, I said. I was told this house was at risk of foreclosure." My mother laughed once. A nervous little sound. "This is not the time." "For 12 years, I continued. I sent money because Mom and Dad said they were behind on the mortgage." My father finally looked up. His face had gone gray. "Claire," he said. "Sit down." That was the first time anyone else in the room seemed to understand something was wrong. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. My mother's eyes locked on it. "What is that?" "Receipts." A small murmur moved through the tables. Jessica stood too. "You're seriously bringing paperwork to their anniversary?" I turned to her. "You were about to accept a house in front of everyone. Paperwork seems relevant." Someone gasped. My mother's face flushed. "That house is none of your business." I opened the folder. "That's strange," I said, "because according to the county recorder's office, it is entirely my business." Daniel stepped forward then. Calm. Professional. Unshaken. My mother blinked at him. Who are you? My name is Daniel Price. I'm Ms. Bennett's attorney. The word attorney moved through the room like wind through dry leaves. Attorney. Jessica looked at Mark. Mark stopped smiling. My father whispered. Oh God. I heard it. So did Aunt Diane. Daniel did not raise his voice. I have certified copies of the recorded deed, the transfer affidavit, and the occupancy agreement executed by Evelyn Margaret Bennett prior to her death. My mother snapped. This is a family matter. Daniel looked at her. Property fraud often is. The room went completely silent. Not quiet. Silent. Even the children at the back table stopped moving. My mother's mouth opened, but no words came out. I pulled out the certified deed. The blue stamp caught the overhead light. My grandmother left the house to me, I said. When she died, ownership transferred to my name. Mom and Dad were allowed to live there under conditions. Jessica's face twisted. That's not true. I handed the document to Aunt Diane, who was closest. She looked at it, then covered her mouth. Oh, Warren. My father closed his eyes. That told the room everything before he said a word. My mother recovered first. She was a confused old woman, she said. She didn't know what she was signing. Daniel opened another page. Her competency was affirmed by 2 witnesses and a notary. The document was recorded legally. She meant for the family to have it, Mom snapped. I looked at her. No. She meant for me to have it. Jessica's voice rose. You don't even need a house. I have children. There it was again. The oldest math in our family. Jessica's need plus my silence equaled her entitlement. I reached into the folder and pulled out a second stack. These are bank records. Transfers I made to Mom and Dad. Mortgage payments I was told were necessary. Repairs I covered. Taxes I paid.